I didn't realize how much I had lost until I stood in the rain, holding an envelope that proved I was never supposed to survive what they did to me. The ink was smudged. The paper was falling apart in my hands, but the words were clear enough to show me that for 3 years, the people I loved most had watched me suffer while they held the key to my survival. And they had chosen silence. The envelope was soaked through. The stamp said it was mailed 3 years ago, September 2021, but I had never received it. I had never even known it existed. When I finally tore it open that night, standing outside the house that used to feel like home, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the paper, I knew something was terribly, unforgivably wrong. Because inside that envelope was a check, $83,000. And a letter that explained why my sister had stopped answering my calls when I was dying. Before I go any further, I need to say something that's been weighing on me. I'm looking at the numbers right now, and it breaks my heart. 82% of you are watching this story, hearing about a man who lost everything, his reputation, his family, his will to live, and you're going to leave without hitting subscribe. Is that who we are? People who witness injustice and walk away in silence. If you believe that the truth matters, that no one should be destroyed by lies and abandoned by the people who are supposed to love them, then prove it. Subscribe right now and comment where you're watching from. Don't let my story be just another video you scroll past. Stand with me, because what happened to me could happen to anyone. It could happen to you. And when it does, you'll want to know that someone out there is listening. My name is Jackson Jude. Most people call me JJ. And for 32 years, I thought I knew what my life was. I thought I understood loyalty. I thought I understood family. I thought I knew what sacrifice meant and what it could buy you in this world. Turns out I didn't know anything. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, the kind of place where everyone knows your name and your business before you even walk through the door. The kind of place where your reputation is everything and your word is supposed to mean something. My father was a mechanic, hardworking man, honest. The kind of guy who would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it, even if it meant he went home cold. He died when I was 17. Heart attack. Sudden. One minute he was laughing at the dinner table, telling us about a customer who tried to fix his own transmission with duct tape and prayer. The next minute he was on the floor, clutching his chest, his face turning gray. I called 911. I did CPR the way they taught us in school. I begged him to stay with me, but he was gone before the ambulance even arrived. That kind of loss reshapes your entire world in a single afternoon. You go from being a kid with plans and dreams to being the man of the house overnight. No warning, no preparation, just responsibility dropping on your shoulders like a ton of bricks. After that, it was just me and my younger sister, Claudia. She was 14, still in middle school, still figuring out who she was, and suddenly she was looking at me like I had all the answers, like I could fill the space our father left behind. I tried. God, I tried. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, stocking shelves at the grocery store during the day, bussing tables at a diner at night. I gave up my college scholarship, full ride to NC State for engineering, so she could go to university when the time came. I walked her down the aisle at her wedding when she was 25, my hand shaking because I was so proud and so terrified at the same time. I held her firstborn son in the hospital 3 years later and cried like a child because I couldn't believe we had made it this far, that we had survived. Her husband's name was Daniel. Good guy, I thought, ambitious. He had dreams of starting his own business, a logistics company that would handle freight and distribution for small businesses across the state. He had the vision. He had the drive. He just didn't have the capital. So I gave it to him. $47,000. Every cent I had saved over 15 years of working myself to the bone. I handed it over without hesitation because that's what family does. You show up, you sacrifice, you trust, and you don't keep score. I never asked for a single dollar back. I never even brought it up. Because in my mind, that money wasn't a loan. It was an investment in their future, in Claudia's future, in the future of her children. For years, everything seemed fine. Better than fine. Daniel's company grew. They moved into a bigger house in a nicer neighborhood. Claudia stopped working to raise their 2 boys, Nathan and Tyler. They took vacations. They posted photos on social media of beach trips and ski resorts and family dinners at restaurants I couldn't afford to eat at. And I kept working, kept grinding. I was proud of them. Proud that my sacrifice had meant something, that the life I had given up had helped build something beautiful for someone I loved. I never asked for recognition. I never asked for gratitude. I just wanted to know that I had done the right thing. Then, 3 years ago, everything changed. It started with fatigue, the kind that doesn't go away no matter how much you sleep. I thought I was just getting old, thought I was burned out from working too many hours. I ignored it for months. Then came the headaches. Blinding, nauseating headaches that made it hard to think, hard to stand, hard to function. I took painkillers, drank more water, told myself it was stress. Then I started losing weight, 20 pounds in 6 weeks. I wasn't trying. I was eating the same, but my clothes were hanging off me like I was disappearing inside my own skin. Finally, I went to the doctor, and that's when my world fell apart for the second time. Stage 3 lymphoma, cancer, aggressive, spreading, the kind that requires immediate treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, the kind that makes you lose your hair, your strength, your savings, and sometimes your faith. The doctor told me I had a fight ahead of me, that the survival rate was decent if we acted fast, but decent wasn't a guarantee, and fast meant expensive. I told Claudia. I called her that night, my voice shaking, trying to keep it together because I didn't want to scare her. I told her what the doctor said. I told her I was going to need help, that I couldn't do this alone. She cried. She said all the right things. "We're here for you, JJ, whatever you need. You're going to beat this. You're the strongest person I know." I believed her. I told Daniel. He sent a text. "We're praying for you, brother. You've got this." At first, they were there. Claudia visited me in the hospital twice during my first round of chemo. She brought flowers. She held my hand while I threw up into a plastic basin. She told me I was going to be okay. But then the visits stopped. The calls became less frequent. The texts became shorter. "Thinking of you. Hang in there. Sorry, busy day." I told myself they had their own lives, their own responsibilities. I didn't want to be a burden. But when I lost my apartment, because I couldn't work, couldn't pay rent, couldn't keep up with anything, I had no choice. I called Claudia and asked if I could stay with them during recovery, just for a few months, just until I got back on my feet. There was a pause on the other end of the line, a long, uncomfortable pause. Then Daniel's voice. "Now's not a good time, JJ. The boys are adjusting to new schools. Claudia's got a lot on her plate, maybe in a few months." A few months. I was dying, and my own family told me to wait. That was the moment I stopped blaming myself for feeling abandoned. That was the moment I realized something had shifted. I just didn't know how deep the betrayal went. Not yet. I ended up staying with a friend from church, a man named Carl who barely knew me but opened his home anyway. He was in his 60s, a widower who lived alone in a small house on the edge of town. He had a spare room in the basement. It wasn't much, but it was warm and dry and safe. Carl drove me to chemotherapy appointments. He sat in the waiting room for hours, reading the same magazine over and over, just so I wouldn't have to go through it alone. He made me soup when I couldn't keep food down. He bought me ginger ale and crackers when the nausea was so bad I thought I might die from it. He sat with me in silence when the pain was too much for words. He never asked me for rent, never asked me for anything. He just showed up, every single day. Meanwhile, I heard through mutual friends that Claudia and Daniel had bought a vacation home in Florida. A condo in Destin, right on the beach. I saw the photos on social media. The smiling faces, the sunset views, the brand new SUV parked in the driveway. I tried not to let it bother me. I tried to be happy for them. But every time I saw those photos, something inside me cracked a little more. I called her one afternoon after a particularly brutal chemo session. My voice was weak, my hands were shaking, but I needed to hear her voice. I needed to know that I still mattered. "Claudia, I'm happy for you. I really am. The new place looks beautiful, but I need to talk to you about something." "What's up?" Her voice was distracted. I could hear the boys yelling in the background. "I'm drowning," I said quietly. "I can't afford my medical bills. I've got collection agencies calling me every day. I don't know what to do." There was a pause. I could hear her breathing. "JJ, we've got our own expenses. Daniel's business is doing okay, but we're not rich. You know how it is. Things are tight." I did know. I knew I had given them $47,000. I knew they had never paid me back. I knew they were living in a house I had helped them buy, driving cars I had helped them afford, raising children I had helped them provide for. But I didn't say it, because I didn't want to be that person, the one who keeps score, the one who throws the past in your face when you're asking for help. So I just said, "Okay, I understand." And I hung up. I sat on the edge of Carl's guest bed and stared at the wall for 2 hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, feeling like I had been erased from my own family's life, like I had become invisible. A few weeks later, I saw another post. Claudia and Daniel at a steakhouse celebrating their anniversary. Expensive wine, lobster tails, big smiles. I closed the app and didn't open it again for 6 months. I survived the cancer. Barely. The doctors said it was a miracle, that my body had responded to treatment better than they expected, that I was one of the lucky ones. But survival didn't feel like victory. It felt like being a ghost in my own life. I had no job, no home, no savings. I was living in Carl's basement, trying to rebuild from nothing, trying to figure out who I was supposed to be now that I wasn't dying anymore. I got a job at a hardware store, minimum wage, stocking shelves, helping customers find the right size screws. It was humbling, but it was honest work. And after everything I had been through, honest work felt like a gift. I started saving again, a few dollars at a time. I opened a new bank account. I set a goal, save enough for a security deposit on an apartment, move out of Carl's basement, start over. It took me 8 months to save $1,200. And every time I saw a photo of Claudia and Daniel living their best life, new furniture, family trips to Disney World, designer clothes for the boys, something inside me cracked a little more. Then, one afternoon in late September, Carl handed me the mail. "This came for you," he said. "Looks official." It was a large envelope, brown, heavy, waterlogged from the rain that had been pouring all week. The return address was from a law firm in Richmond, Virginia, Morton and Associates, attorneys at law. And the stamp was dated 3 years earlier, September 2021. 3 years. I stared at it for a long moment, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't understand. How had this been lost for 3 years? How had it finally found me? I opened it carefully, my hands shaking. Inside was a letter, typed on official letterhead, professional, formal, and attached to it was a check. $83,000. I read the letter once, then twice, then 3 times, my vision blurred. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The letter explained that my father had a life insurance policy I never knew about. A policy he had taken out years before he died, when he was still young and healthy and planning for a future he would never see. It was a small policy, but over the years, with interest and dividends, it had grown. When he died, the insurance company had initially contested the claim. Some technicality about paperwork, some bureaucratic nonsense that tied the payout up in legal limbo for years. But the law firm had fought it, and eventually they won. The payout was $166,000, to be split evenly between me and Claudia. $83,000 to me, $83,000 to her. The attorney had mailed the notification to my last known address, the apartment I had lost during treatment. The letter had been forwarded, misrouted, lost in the postal system, and eventually returned to sender. By the time they tracked me down again, 3 years had passed. But here's the part that made my blood run cold. The letter said that Claudia had been notified. She had been contacted. She had received her payout. 3 years ago. In September 2021. She knew. She had known the entire time. And she never told me. I sat there in Carl's living room, holding that letter. And I felt something inside me break. Not crack, break, completely, irreparably. She had received $83,000, while I was losing my apartment, while I was begging for help, while I was sleeping in a basement and working minimum wage to save $1,200. She had the money, the whole time, and she said nothing. I thought about the phone call, the one where I told her I was drowning, the one where she said, "Things are tight." I thought about Daniel saying, "Not a good time." I thought about the vacation home, the cars, the dinners, the trips. And I realized they had written me off. They had decided I wasn't going to make it, and they had chosen to build their life with money that was also mine. After that, I couldn't pretend anymore. I didn't call, I didn't text, I didn't give them warning. I drove to their house. It was a Tuesday evening. The sun was setting. The sky was streaked with orange and pink. It was the kind of evening that should have been beautiful, but all I felt was cold. Their house was in a subdivision on the north side of town. Big houses, manicured lawns, 2-car garages, the kind of neighborhood I used to dream about living in. I parked on the street and sat in my car for a few minutes, staring at the house. The lights were on. I could see them through the window, Claudia, Daniel, Nathan, Tyler, sitting around the dinner table, laughing. They looked happy, like a family from a commercial, like everything was perfect. I got out of the car. The envelope was in my hand. I walked up the driveway. My heart was pounding. My mouth was dry, but my mind was clear. I knocked on the door. Daniel answered. He was wearing a polo shirt and khakis. He looked comfortable, successful. He looked like a man who had never struggled a day in his life. "JJ," he looked surprised, uncomfortable. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to Claudia." He hesitated, glanced back into the house, then stepped aside. "Come in." I stepped into the foyer. The house smelled like roast chicken and fresh bread, the kind of smells that should have felt like home, but all I felt was rage. Claudia came into the hallway. Her face went pale when she saw me. "Hey," she said, forcing a smile. "This is a surprise. You should have called. We're just finishing dinner." I held up the envelope. "You got the money," I said quietly. 3 years ago, you knew I was entitled to the same amount, and you said nothing." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. "JJ, it's not." "Not what?" My voice was steady. Calm. That's what scared her, I think. The calmness. "Not what it looks like. Not that you let me lose my home, my health, my dignity, while you were sitting on money that could have saved me." Daniel stepped forward. "Now hold on, JJ. You don't understand." I raised a hand. "I understand perfectly. I gave you $47,000. I didn't ask for it back. I didn't hold it over you. I trusted you. And when I was dying, when I was literally dying, you told me it wasn't a good time." Claudia's eyes filled with tears. "We were going to tell you." "When?" I asked. "When were you going to tell me? When I was dead? When you didn't have to worry about me asking questions?" "That's not fair," she whispered. "Fair," I laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound. "You want to talk about fair? I worked 2 jobs so you could go to college. I gave up my scholarship so you could have a future. I walked you down the aisle. I held your son in the hospital. I gave you everything I had. And when I needed you, you disappeared." She was crying now, full-on sobbing, but I didn't stop. "I just want to know one thing," I said. "Why?" She didn't answer. "So I did. You thought I was finished. You thought I wouldn't survive. And you decided that the money was better spent on your life than on mine." "That's not true," she said, but her voice was weak, broken. "Then tell me what is." She couldn't. She just stood there, crying, shaking her head. Daniel put a hand on her shoulder. "JJ, you need to calm down." "I am calm," I said, and I was the calmest I had been in years. "I didn't come here to yell. I didn't come here for an apology. I came here so you'd know that I know, and so you'd have to live with that." I turned to leave. "JJ, wait." Claudia's voice was desperate. I stopped at the door. didn't turn around. "You made a choice," I said. "Now live with it." And I walked away. I cashed the check the next morning, $83,000. I paid off my medical debt, every last cent. I bought a used car, nothing fancy, just something reliable. I got a small apartment, 1 bedroom, clean, quiet, mine. I found a better job, a position with a construction company, benefits, decent pay, room to grow. I started rebuilding. Claudia called, 17 times in the first week. I didn't answer. She texted, long paragraphs, apologies, explanations, justifications. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought you'd be angry. I was going to give it to you eventually. I didn't respond. Daniel showed up at my apartment once, knocked on the door, said we needed to talk. I told him to leave. He stood there for a minute, looking uncomfortable, then walked away. I didn't do it out of spite. I didn't do it to punish them. I did it because some betrayals don't heal. Some relationships can't be salvaged. And some people only value you when they think they might need you again. I haven't spoken to them in 2 years, and I don't plan to. Carl died last spring. Heart failure. Peaceful, they said, in his sleep. I was the one who found him. I had stopped by to bring him groceries the way I did every week. He was in his recliner, the TV on, a book open on his lap. I cried harder for Carl than I ever cried for Claudia. At his funeral, I stood at the podium and told everyone what he had done for me, how he had saved my life, how he had shown me what family was supposed to look like. Claudia was there, in the back row. She tried to talk to me after the service. I walked past her without a word. What this taught me was that survival isn't just about beating the odds. It's about knowing your worth even when the people closest to you forget it. And sometimes, the proof you need isn't for them. It's for you, to remind yourself that you were never the problem, that you were never too much or not enough, that you were always worth saving, even when they decided you weren't. Thank you for watching.